All right, I am going to share the live stream URL in our chat, and so you guys can follow along in class, code along, and rewind the live stream if you want to have the latest and greatest code. So what we're going to do today, as we learned a lot of theory yesterday and code, for building RESTful APIs. And we're going to do the same today. We're going to continue to build on RESTful APIs that connect with the Mongo database. But yesterday, we really just built one route in Express. We built essentially the get all of the resources. In our case, our resources were users. So we did a listing route, but we did not do an update, delete, or insert route. So we're going to make all four of the CRUD routes, and we're going to do it in the LawnConnect MERN demo project, as opposed to just yesterday I just built something from scratch. Today I'm going to continue working on this repo that I do have on GitHub. Now, if I show you guys, this is a public repo. So if I do git remote, I can show you the public repo so that you guys can clone it. Let me open it up, control click that. And this is the URL to the public repo. So if you want to code along, this is where you can start, right? Because I realize you're probably not exactly up to date with everything. The only thing you'll be missing here are the node modules folder. So if you clone this, you'll need to do an npm install or npm I, and then you'll need a .env file with your port number on it and so forth. Now I already have this repo existing right here with the .env. So again, you'll have to create this .env, and right now these are the two variables that I have in it, right? So clone the repo, do an npm install, make the .env, and you'll be the same point that I am, right? And you'll be able to code along and follow along. So that's the starting point. So again, from yesterday, there's a couple of key differences, and you guys will need to pay attention because, of course, you're going to need to do CRUD on your issue trackers, on your bug trackers, on multiple kinds of entities, right? You're going to have bugs and you're going to have users. And here's something else that I'm doing different than yesterday. We are also, print what off for you? I don't have access to a printer right down here. Do you need it right now? I don't have access to that printer. I got to go upstairs. Doug can get you. All right. The other difference is I'm going to be deploying to G-Cloud, as you guys will as well. You guys also will have to deploy to G-Cloud. I want to make that requirement part of your labs this semester. You've already deployed once. You have not redeployed. So as you work on these upcoming labs, you will redeploy to G-Cloud so that your live software has all of these updates as well. Nia, you had a question?
Yeah, where can you find that GitHub?
Yeah, where was the GitHub URL? I'll paste it in the chat. Okay, and that's pretty well up to date with everything that I have. Now, if I kind of go to my folder and let me again just open this up one more time, and I'm just going to do a git pull to show you that I'm current. Git pull, so I'm up to date, right? So if you clone, add the .env, you will be up to date as well. And at this point, I can open up in VS Code. Scroll that over there. And this is the starting point for our full stack MERN app. And what we're going to do, we're going to start off by connecting it into our Mongo database. And so again, here's our .env file. If I kind of zoom in here, we don't have much going on. Oh yeah, don't forget your npmi. Literally in this terminal, you're going to do an npmi to bring in the node modules dependencies. I don't need to do it again, but whatever. Okay. And just one thing that is, some of this is going to be a little ad hoc. Notice my dev script on the back end is start dev, but if I go to the dev script on the front end, it's just dev. npm run dev on the front end, start dev on the back end. Let's just make the scripts the same name. So I'm just going to call it my dev script on the back end and my dev script on the front end. That'll at least make that consistent. That always was something, I don't know why I ever did it with two different, but I like having the same start script. Also yesterday, we kind of discovered I found a newer syntax for this that I like, which is instead of doing the import here on line 5, you can do an asynchronous import as such. So I will add a wait. Okay, so instead of doing our imports up at the top for our routers, we've refactored that to essentially work the same way. There's really nothing different other than it. You know, to me, I believe this would be a slightly more efficient way. It's not going to do the import until it's necessary. And if I'm remembering right, this was on 8080, and that's correct. And if I boot up my npm run dev script, it should have a front end that it loads up, and this is just dummy front end. But right now I've got like these jobs. And so the full path to my get all jobs is /API/jobs /API, well, there's /companies /jobs. But the way I left this off was this was just getting an array of data. This was not pulling the data out of Mongo. So that's how we're going to refactor. We're going to refactor this, and I'm going to get rid of some of the comments here because just to clean it up. Okay, now one thing here, I added this in and I did some troubleshooting along the way. I don't think I need, whoops, I don't think I need this right now. Let me comment that out. Okay, that's right. And so we were doing a little demonstration of forking this repo and then creating a branch. Remember, Brody left a little, he modified this repo as if we're working on a team, and then he did a pull request and I pulled in his code into my repo, and that's all up and running good there. And I don't need that code, so I'm just cleaning up my my index.js to kind of like a bare minimum of what's needed before I bring in Mongo. Now, for Mongo, there's a couple of variables that we created yesterday. One was a Mongo URI, and this was a connection string. So the variable was Mongo URI. Now, this is a connection string. Let me, because I got multiple questions yesterday where to find this connection string. And I do go fast, so I'll show you again where to find the connection string. So in here, if you edit the connection, you click edit the connection string, and it's never smart to do this on the public internet, but again, what I do is I change my password regularly. So you click this and it starts to show, you still don't see the password until you literally click on this text box. Then you can see and copy and paste your password. Okay. So yes, this is a bad idea what I'm currently doing. Don't do like I'm doing. However, I will immediately change my password and this will no longer be valid. So then what you can do once you get that connection string, and so this is the Mongo URI, now, I don't know why I have it in there twice. Okay. And then we need a database name. DB name equals, and in here, I believe in my sample databases, I don't have a LawnConnect. So let's make a database. I'm just going to delete this database because this was yesterday. There was just a demo database. Don't need it. A lot of these are, I'll keep my passport. I'm going to delete some of these. Just as databases I don't need anymore. Okay, let's make a database. So right here, make a LawnConnect database with a connection called users. Collection called users, and create that. Okay, so we now have a database name and a collection name. LawnConnect is our database name. Okay, so next, yesterday I made a database module. And in my database module, let's zoom in. We brought in Mongo client. From MongoDB. Wait a minute, don't we have to install MongoDB? Yes, we do. So let me close. This is the MongoDB driver, right? So let's just npmjs.com, MongoDB driver, the official MongoDB driver for Node. Simple install command. Let's paste that install command so that we can now execute this import statement correctly. I'm also using the debug dependency, so I should be able to bring in the debug channel, if you will, for troubleshooting purposes. Okay, now we start off with a db equal to null, and we wrote this function called connect to database. That pulls in our connection string and our database name. Now I called this db name in Mongo URI. So db name and Mongo URI. So these are variables coming in from our environment variables. And this is called a singleton pattern because it's only going to instantiate this variable in memory once. If it's if it's falsy, basically, right? If the underscore DB is falsy, then we run this code. Otherwise, we don't need to return underscore DB. We then wrote a ping function that calls connect to database. It runs a ping command and makes a variable here called pong, and then it's kind of a get it, ping pong, haha. And then, which by the way, if you're not familiar with a ping command itself, a ping is a communication tool. You're just making sure you can communicate with, you can ping an IP address is what you do. You ping an IP address across the network. And if you get a response, then you can communicate to that device across the network. And so can you ping a phone's IP address? Absolutely. You know, phones are internet connected devices. They get IP addresses. So yes, you can ping a phone. So in this case, we're not pinging a phone. In this case, we're pinging a database. And debugging that database. And then we're going to export this function called ping. And then to test if ping works over here. Now, by the way, a little foreshadowing, I've seen this ping method break some stuff before. So it's good to like test that you can ping, but I will comment out the ping call. Once I know the connection is working, I'm going to comment out that line, because once I know everything's set up properly and I can pull data, I've seen that ping, and I wasn't able to figure out why, but I've seen it break like deployments to G-Cloud. I can't explain everything, but I can explain that that caused an issue. So I'm going to, over here, import ping. From database.js, that looks good. And let's just call ping. It's not an async function. Oh, it is. It is an async function, but regardless.
And async is when they load, stuff loads when you press it, right?
Well, right. So asynchronous coding is when it's like multitasking.
Yeah.
Instead of single tasking, multitasking. I think of multitasking as how to think of that. So, so now if I boot this back up, I run my dev script on the back end. If everything is working right, we're going to get a ping, and that's what we get. So that's a good, that's a good step, so that we no longer need jobs or companies. We'll kind of come back to this. What I'm working with today is users. And we're gonna do CRUD on users. So I'm not working with companies and I'm not working with jobs. This was just an iteration. We're gonna delete this. So we can work with users and do CRUD on users. But now that I'm pinging, I'm happy. I'm probably just going to take that out right now so I don't forget about it later. So I don't have to worry about pinging because I know everything's set up properly. And now this will allow me to, inside of this API folder, the question is singular or plural. I'm going to name my file plural. Again, I'm going to probably end up just deleting these as I'm not really going to use those verbatim. Okay. One thing that I did, let me pull this up. Are you guys familiar with all these AI tools? And they have this feature called deep research. Raise your hand if you're familiar with deep research on these AI tools. Kind of, sort of. Okay.
I only understand that when you ask a question, it spits out an answer. I
Yeah, the more specific you are in prompting these AI tools, the better, for sure. Let me share something. Okay. So, look, for right or wrong, these LLMs, they leapfrog one another in like their capabilities, and it boils down to like nowadays they're always changing who's the best, like who's performing the best. It's always changing every 3 months. There was like a hot minute where Google's product Gemini was like the best, and in that hot minute I started paying for their premium because they offered this tool called Deep Research. And what Deep Research does, and they were like the first one to come out with it, now they all have it. ChatGPT has it, Grok has it, XAI or whatever. They all have this Deep Research. But I was paying for it for a minute because what it'll do is you can ask it a question, and it will go out to the web and find hundreds of resources to compile these website resources together to formulate an answer. And so what I wanted this thing to do is research a database schema for this problem. The problem of this marketplace between users and what they call service providers. And so if you dive into this, I'm kind of, at one point you could see how many websites it researched, but suffice to say, this tool, this deep research capability can make pretty well designed schemas for databases. And so it talks about, if you get into here, the two-sided marketplace for lawn care, basically having a customer and a service provider, obviously the lawn care company and the customer having a reputation system, so as like Uber and all them do, you can rate one another. You can rate the customers can rate the service providers and vice versa. The data modeling approach, embedding versus referencing. So Mongo's strength is embedding. However, this is a hybrid approach. We're going to do a lot of embedding, but we'll do some referencing between collections. So embedded is considered denormalized, and referenced is your traditional normalized database. Okay, blah, 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 blah. So ultimately, it came up with these collections: users, services, a services collection, a jobs collection, transactions, and reviews. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 collections. We're just going to focus on one. It's the first one because the users collection has a user ID. Well, you're going to notice that the provider ID is a reference to the user ID. So we'll get there because we haven't talked much about relational tables in Mongo. We've talked more about embedding. All that just to say, this is a very solid place to start from. Not going to say we're going to end here, but this is a starting point. So I would encourage you guys to leverage AI tools to research database schemas. Sorry?
Where will we end up?
I don't know. The reason I say I don't know is because the answer will evolve as I continue to write this software. As I continue to write the software, your database schema will change. And that's a benefit of Mongo, is that it can change. It's not strict. So what do our users have? Our users have an ID, an email, a hashed password, a role, which the role can either be a customer or a provider, a created at, which created at is your date when it was created, and a profile, which is embedded. Now the profile, because you can either be a customer or a provider. If you're a customer, your profile will have certain attributes. If you are a provider, your profile will have different attributes. That makes sense, doesn't it? Like if you're a customer, it might be your address where you need the lawn mowed. If you're a provider, you might provide your business address and your services that you offer. Okay, so if you read here, this users is polymorphic schema. What does it mean, polymorphic? Polymorphic just means different shapes. Our users have different shapes. If our user is a customer, the profile will look one way. If our user is a provider, the provider profile will be shaped differently. Can you guys all see that? That's all polymorphic means. Is that users is not a one size fits all. They all have the same shape. They all are shaped differently. Okay, so it's a polymorphic schema simplifying authentication and centralizing user management while accommodating roles. We got roles via embedded documents. Okay, so these are the fields that our users will have. And so let's yeah, we're going to be doing some API calls with this. So that's where we're headed. So let's make a customer. Now,
I'm just wondering, because you're in the LawnConnect database, but you created the API, demo API calls.
that was yesterday. I'm not even working in that anymore.
Oh, okay.
Yep. So this role is a singular role. I'll make it an array of roles because you might be a customer and an admin or something along those lines. So I'm already kind of starting to, see some slight differences that I'm going to have here. But let's, for the sake of this, I'm just going to put a customer in that is a role of customer. And I can manually insert this data. But there's a problem when you manually insert this. Let's go here. And I'm going to import. Yeah. Insert a document. Okay. So I always have fun with this. _ID. Maybe I go here and I go here and I get this email _ID email. I'm just going to put one user in. For now, I'm just doing password. I'm not doing a password hash. I'll fix that. Password of that. Okay. For now, this is all I'm going to do. Just to get everything wired up and reading, and then I'll insert and I'll update and I'll delete with all these other things. So we have a users collection with one document inside of a database. Let us read out of that database. And in this module, we need an express router. Express router, export as users router. I'm going to bring that in as such. So /API/users. Inside of my database module, I need a get users function. Connect to the database. And this is a select star from the users collection. Capital U on users and export the get users function. So here, connect to the database, hit the users collection, find all of the records, turn it into an array, return that array of users. In this case, it's an array of one user. And so if I go in here, in my users, I'm going to import get users from, we need the .js there. Okay, so here's our function that we exported. Now we're bringing it in. We need to now make our endpoint. Again, I'm not going to have the trailing / at the end. Here, I'm going to await get users res.status of 200 because we need status mess. Now, this could be if there's not users, we could send something back like that. Else, if it's truthy, and what's nice about this is if you hit return, it says break out of the function. So I don't think that's necessary. So res status 500. Now, you know, the request was made maybe properly, but something on the server didn't work. Error retrieving users. Otherwise, send back the users. This is on port 8080. We're going to use Postman to test. So let me close what I had open in Postman. Let me bring it over. And LawnConnect. And let's make a new folder for users. Get all users. Localhost 8080. I believe that is the full path that we need. And if it's all working, we are now retrieving data out of our database. And life is good. Except for that's not really the shape of my data that I want, but it's at least performing a read operation. So maybe the next operation I do is an insert operation, in which case let me open up another project that I've got that already solved for. Inside of here, async function add user. We're going to take in a user object as a parameter. We're going to connect to the database and run an insert one command. Now, this right here, this insert one command will return an object. I need to inspect that object to kind of look at what's returned from Mongo. Because Mongo, or this Mongo driver, will send an object back and it'll give me all sorts of information about the success or failure of this function. So then over here, we need to import add user. And now we can do a what? A router.post. You guys knew that was coming? Router.post is adding a new user. This is when we're posting to /users. Okay. So, we can read from rec.body. Now, the assumption is this is coming across from a form on the front end. All right, let's walk through this code here. I'm not sure of the shape of this object, so line 17. Here we're calling add user. According to what this thinks, it says, hey, if result has an inserted ID property. Well, then something has been inserted to our database, and we can send back a 201 status object created JSON of the ID that was created and spreading the new user fields. So we're actually sending back the data. I wouldn't say I want to do that in a real production app. Otherwise, we say error adding user. So just for the sake of this, I want to do a debug, import debug from debug, debug users, app:users. Let's do this. I'm going to call this debug users result, and this is a object, so let's stringify that result. Okay, so I'm doing this because I want everyone to kind of see what the shape of this add user method. It's going to send some data back, and I want to look at that shape and see if this is why this will or won't work. Again, I'm just kind of assuming, which is not smart, so I'm assuming this will break is actually what I'm assuming. So now let's do a new request. This is a post to localhost 8080 users. Again, making this a post. We're going into the body like this is a form. The ID will be created for us. Right away. I'm gonna show you guys a couple new things here. It's like, hey, password field, email and password. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. egamestead@rankin.edu. I'm just going to say role is customer. Profile. Okay, and so don't know how to make this, using this form encoded, its own object. I do know how to make it its own object if I change raw to JSON and I go like this, but I'm just going to say profile is this is just dummy. Okay, so let's just go here. 4 attributes. Let's send it across. And look, it did send some stuff back. It sent back the ID that was created with all these other attributes. It actually sent back the ID twice because we're spreading the object. And so if I go back here, you could see that object has 2 properties, an acknowledged of true and an inserted ID. So this code is good as far as that is valid. Result has an inserted ID. In this case, we don't need to send the ID back twice, so we can just do that. Okay. Now that we have a user, we need to be able to read that user. Well, the reading of the user is essentially, can you log in? Right, so the next thing that I want to do, I've got 2 users in my database, effectively the same user. I'll delete this other one now. I don't just have this one. So if you give me an email and a password that's correct, you say correct, welcome, log in. Otherwise, you reject it. So let's make a login. Let's make a login route. This is going to be a post, router.post/login. Rec and res. This will be new for you guys. We're going to destructure the email and the password coming out of rec.body. First, I'll check for I'm going to write a function, async function, get user by email. So I want to see, before I register a new user, you just want to make sure they don't already exist. You want to make sure the email doesn't exist already in the database. Because if they already have that email in there, you don't want to register them twice. So here, yeah, let me show you how to implement that. You're thinking, register user, get user by email. Nope, we just got to write a find one here. So const user await. So it's the user's collection. Find one. Email of email. So export that function. So here, get user by email. We're just doing a find one. If that email exists, it'll find the user. Otherwise, we have to inspect. It'll probably return null, is my guess, if it doesn't exist. So get user by email. We're going to see if they already exist. So we're going to start it off at null. You can put this in a try-catch block. So, by the way, import, you have to import get user by email from the database module. Now we can call it passing the email field. Now this is assuming a database error, right? We need to mark this as an async anonymous function so that we can await this. So I put this in a try-catch because anytime you're making a database call, it's a good idea to put it in a try-catch. That way if the database throws an exception, you can do that. I need to fix that up here as well. Wrap this in a try-catch in case the database fails. This essentially would do that. Here, if it's falsy, we say user not found. No, I don't need to say user not found. If the existing user already exists. So I really just want that to return user already exists. Otherwise, we can continue. Oh, I'm sorry. We're not registering a user. I was thinking for a second I was registering a user. Here, we can get a user. So if the existing user and existing user's password is equal to password, then we're going to welcome them, they've logged in. So if the username exists, that's going to return true. There is an existing user and the password equals the password. We're going to welcome back. Yeah, welcome to LawnConnect. This is a 200 now. Otherwise, invalid email or password. Okay. We're going to flush this out a little bit. But we're posting to login. We see if we can find the user by their email, this is going to be truthy. And if this variable is truthy and the password matches, we welcome them. Otherwise, invalid email or password. Now we're gonna learn how to very simply hash this. But let's go ahead and create a new request. This is, I'll show you. I will show you. API users login with an email and a password. eagudmstead@rankin.edu. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Let me get my pathing right. Posting to login. That's not a get. That's a post to login. Whoop. And we're going to name this the login let's get that saved in the right folder. LawnConnect, user requests, save right there. And this is add user. So now, going back here, giving it valid credentials. Welcome to LawnConnect. If I give it a bad password, invalid email or password. If I give it a bad email address, we get invalid email or password. Okay. Now, of course, we're currently storing our passwords in plain text. That's obviously bad practice. We want to encrypt that. We want to make it so that even when your users put in bad passwords like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, that a bad actor looking at the password in the database, if they somehow got access, couldn't understand the password. So that's what a hash is. It's an encryption. It's a way of taking a plain text password and making it so that an average, yeah, it doesn't make sense. So there is there's a package for that called bcrypt. So check it out. Here's the package we're going to use, bcrypt. Bcrypt is really awesome, and I can show you a 5-minute YouTube video that it can explain it way better than I can, but it's a very great tool for slowing down the hackers. You can never stop the hackers, but you can slow them down. And so bcrypt is a great tool for slowing down the hackers, and you can really slow them down. I'll show you a video on it. A library to help you hash passwords. Okay. So let's install bcrypt. I'm going to stop the thing from running. I'm going to install bcrypt. Now up top, I can import bcrypt from bcrypt. And when I go to register a new user, when I post to a new user, now that I've got this function, again, I don't want to register the same user twice. So let's here. New user rec.body. So new user should have an email. If await get user by email, new user dot email. If that's truthy, we're not going to register the same user twice. That's nice. So if user exists, return 400, client side error, email already in use. So now if I go back and I try and let's get all users. Oop, let me boot up my back end. Okay, backend running. Let's start by getting all users. I've got EA Gudmested. If I go to add a user of EA Gudmested, now I get a message already in use. 400 bad requests. Makes sense. You don't want that to happen. You guys want 5-minute break, 10-minute break? Couple head nods. Let's take 10 minutes. Come back at 1:42, please. I don't think I'm going to get as far as I wanted to today, but we'll get pretty far.
Yeah, he kind of goes really fast.
The reiteration when I watch a video later is going to help me, memorize what I'm learning or trying to learn now. So.
You can't even see the gameplay. Her tail is just in the way.
Oh yeah. That's part of the whimsy.
Dead by Daylight.
Yeah, destroy, build, destroy.
It's not what it is.
You know what that is?
Yeah, I know. It's true.
Yeah.
I watch Cartoon Network as a
Classic.
kid.
Excellent. Say what?
I said I watch Cartoon Network as a kid.
I only watched the episodes that had explosions in it. If it didn't have an explosion, because they would show a trailer or something next episode. If it didn't have it, I wouldn't watch it.
Yeah, I'm pretty lost using this stuff. Like, I feel like I could get it, it just goes really fast.
I'm sorry.
So I feel like it just kind of goes really fast.
I think the practice is good, or for me hearing it twice or 3 times.
I feel like he's going better.
A little bit.
Yeah, a bit. I'm like trying to follow with him. I'm just like, oh my gosh.
And I watched his previous one prior, so that helps.
Yeah, I was meaning to get that done, but I was really busy last night.
Yeah, I'm working on some of the 3.1, so I'm probably doing it a bit inefficiently. I'll have to.
Isn't it the constant struggle as a coder?
Yeah.
Doing everything slightly a little bit inefficiently. Then it all piles on.
I always tend to do things a way that works.
That's all that matters. Make sure it works. Then
It's utterly unreadable to anyone else, but
as long as it works. What the hell is wrong?
don't know.
I'm kind of worried that they're gonna go over the AdSense line. I'm also skirting that line, even for my first 3 days of not being here.
Yeah, but to be fair, you kind of have the excuse of your financials were all messed up.
I started doing hand exercises to help with like cramps and stuff. There's a lot of cool ones. This one's a zombie. You have the sad Italian. Genuinely helps your wrists to do this. The salt shaker. Stop. And what was the last one? I think there was another one. Oh yeah. Just like press down on your wrists. It actually helps a lot. Do you have any hand wrist pain?
Not really.
I guess I just.
I mean, only if I'm like writing, which is something I never do anymore.
Used to write.
No, just like holding a pencil or
Oh.
like I never do that anymore. Everything I do is digital.
See, I play video games on a keyboard a lot, so
Yeah.
hands are kind of pretty.
I don't tend to use keyboard. I tend to use controller.
That's probably why your hands don't as much.
Yeah, controllers just feel better. Like it just doesn't feel good to have my hand like this.
Well, there is some gaming keyboards that make it really easy.
Yeah, I know that my keyboard is definitely not optimized for it.
Yeah, I mean, it's like claw.
It's like, it just feels terrible.
See, that's why I like to get gaming keyboards. I don't even think I'm gonna do it. You got this really nice. Like, are you okay?
Yep.
What are you feeling? We're talking about gaming. Do you game at all?
No.
So we'll keep you guys talking now. I also started doing yoga. It's really fun, actually.
Yeah.
You ever think about doing that?
Not really.
Bro just does not care about health.
I really should care more, but
I won't do yoga. I won't exercise. The rest of the exercise, she needs it. Bro's gonna look like crotchety as hell when he's older. Yeah, though. Good coding. So what are you working on?
I'm trying to figure out how to capture traffic so I can use not Groove Shark, but Wireshark, so I can figure out how to get it from Facebook account so I can destroy it.
You learning Wireshark?
Wireshark, yeah.
Do you know about MMAP?
Yeah, I saw a video about putting them together, but like I didn't have it's not the attention span, it's just like I think it's unfeasible when I'm at the door, right? Because the firewalls and stuff. So like I have to sit in here and like do it.
Do you know how to grab your IP address?
No. I or like what is it? Like going through the Wi-Fi traditionally is how I would do it. And like and also like whatever the settings is in my computer, but you know, Microsoft settings. I don't have what's the phrase? I think I have to be somewhere where it has less like restrictions. Unlike when I'm using Chibi to change my game's memory and stuff, I was allowed to do that in a certain part of like the door, but not the other part. So
That's why I use Linux.
that's what I use.
No restrictions on anything. Josh?
Hoo-ha. Okay. I've got about 45 minutes for me to flush this out to the best of my ability. Whatever I don't finish today, we will finish tomorrow. Because what we have so far, we have get all users, we have posting to a new user, and we have logging in. So we got a couple of read operations. Call that 2 read operations and 1 create operation. What I don't love right now is if I create, at the end of the day, we need to be able to create using React. This is new. Some of you, during your hands-on test, you figured this out. But you can send data across from the front end with form encoded or with JSON. And because if we kind of go back to our index.js, like this was like, hey, accept data from a form, and this is accept data via raw JSON. So we kind of wrote 2 different ways to take data in. So I kind of wonder if I check, I'm just going to delete this user. And I'm going to go back to my post. I'm going to add user. You click on raw, you change this to JSON. And then we can just kind of do like this kind of thing. And so you guys might be familiar with another way of using this. Some of you have probably looked at other tutorials and found this. But what this will allow me to do, if I go back to my schema, put the schema there, the JSON there. We could do something like the ID will be generated, email. This will just allow me to do exactly what I want to do. For now, it's just password. Created at I'll put in the JavaScript, but I'm just going to do profile. Put it in quotes. We could do a subdocument where it's like address. And you gotta flush out what do you want in the user profile for a customer. Maybe you want their first name. You really got to flush out what would be in here. Maybe you got a picture, whatever you may have. So if I send that across, now I refresh Mongo. And we've got now a profile subdocument. And that's kind of more the syntax I was looking for. And what I'm noticing is created at. Well, created at, I'm just going to use some JavaScript over here on my users when I go to oh, by the way, if I go to register this guy twice, I should get back emails already in use. And here, new user created at, now, you know, new date object. By the way, once you get these debugs, once you no longer need them anymore, let's get rid of the old ones. Let's see if that's a date and a time, because that's the thing about JavaScript is that the date object typically has date and time. I don't really want the date and time. So let's go to Mongo, delete this data. So I add the created at, post that user again. Now we get this. So MDN date format. So let's hit the MDN docs. Dates are just new date, invalid date. If I need to look at the constructor, year, get month, date, get date, get date, date dot get date. New date. The date constructor can be called with 2 or more arguments. Those are the date methods. That's not the date constructor. So date today equals new date, const today, new date, today dot get date. Okay. So you make a date object that has date and time, but then you call the get date function and set that. That's kind of more what you could do. Let's delete the dummy data, because I don't want this to have all this extra gibberish. I just want the literal date. And save it, send across. Now, wait a minute, that's the date there. That's the 24th. I'm going too fast. So date string. A string value representing a date parse and interpret using the same algorithm by dates.parse. How do you just get today's date? Please hold. Okay, to local date string. Okay. Aha. Aha. Today to local date string. I was close. Third time's a charm. Delete it. Save it. Post it. Create it at 9/24/2025. Okay. So we've now got a created at date. ID, email. We got to still hash our password. We're almost there. Role. I'm going to tweak role a little bit because I want to make that an array. Because you can have multiple roles, right? You could be a customer and a provider, or you could be a customer and an admin, or you can be a provider and admin, or admin and power user, or whatever. Created at we've got, and profile we've got. So let's hash the password. Right now, new user has a password that's plain text. And we're going to use this bcrypt tool when we're registering a user. So it's actually a one-liner piece of code. So here we've got new user, created app. Okay, we're going to update new user.password, await bcrypt, which we imported earlier, dot hash function, new user, password, and this second argument is called the number of salt rounds. You have to understand what a salt is in the first place to understand what a salt round is. A salt is salt, S-A-L-T. Yep. Yep. That's the language. A salt is a random string of text added onto your password. So if your password is 123456, that's terrible. How to make the most secure passwords? You might think like, oh, I'm going to make my password secure. So I'm going to like take the letter A and make it an @ symbol and an exclamation point at the end. Turns out that by adding special characters and capital letters, like that makes a very, very little difference. To make the biggest difference in secure passwords, the most important thing you can do is make your password really long. The most important thing to make a secure password is make it really long. So a salt takes your 6-character password, 123456, and it turns it into a 50-character password. And so a salt round does that a bunch of times. It like adds, I don't know if it's like compounding, I don't think so, but it changes the salt a bunch of times, the string of text at the end a bunch of times. Because if you're just doing the first random generated salt, it's probably less secure than if you do the 10th one. So that makes it your password plus a random salt at the end of your password to make it a really long password. And then that hashes that, right? Which makes it even more secure. So that's what bcrypt does. And then now, if I save that, like as of right now, our code has a plain text password in the database. Of course, that's terrible. Let's delete that. We've now updated our JavaScript to now hash our passwords. And hey, now we've got a bunch of gibberish. So our email is understandable, but no one, myself included, knows what this user's password is, even though it's terrible, it's 123456. So it'd be very difficult for a hacker to hack that. So now that we've put the new password in using bcrypt, we have to also on the login function, we no longer check the password the same way. We now have to use bcrypt over here too. Await bcrypt compare the password that's given, so this is the password that comes into the function. We destructured the password from rec.body with existing user password. So we run a compare function on the way out. So on the way in, we run a hashing function. On the way out, we run a compare function. And if this comes back true, then the password matches. Otherwise, and we welcome them. Otherwise, it doesn't. Okay, so we save that. Now the password is hashed on the way in. And if I log in with my user, hey, we are logged in. We're still storing it password hashed. But if I give them a bad credential, invalid email or password, invalid email or password, gotta account for this. By the way, this is done a couple of ways. If the front end does not provide these keys, the email and the password, of course you could check for that on the front end. You guys have all seen those form validation red error messages, don't forget your password. Data validation is done on the front end, and you can do data validation in Express. So we are going to learn to do data validation in Express. So as of right now, I'm not concerned about this error because we're going to learn how to do data validation. That will force these fields to come across. Okay. We can get all of our users. Let's make a second user just for the sake of it. Add user. Bob Evans at rankin.edu. And he's my neighbor at 26 Rankin Lane. Bob Evans is now recognized. Okay. A lot of students like, making your own login systems. Hey, ooh, hash passwords, that's cool. And it is. Let's do an update user route. For the sake of this, let's make a provider and give them a different profile. Maybe the business address. Spell business right? Busyness. Yeah, I got it right. This is the next block over, 30. It doesn't matter. They don't have a first name and a last name. They might have a company. Company name? Lawns. Uh-oh. Lawns, Best Lawns. Best Lawns Inc. Best Lawns Inc. Best Lawns Inc. Oh. Would they not have some sort of rating? And we'll have to figure that out. But nonetheless, so here is another user, and this is Best Lawns admin at bestlawns.com. Okay, so now refresh. When you guys were doing this, did your underscore ID, were your objects formatted like that?
No,
I don't remember that.
it was an object ID.
Yeah, right.
I think because you created.
Okay. So let's fix that. I'm gonna delete
Did you call it info ID?
underscore ID. So here's what I want to do. If I think of like other, if I just go to like sample mflix, movies,
You don't
you
really,
just got ID as that.
you don't have to really put an ID in it.
I didn't put an ID.
Um,
I didn't, but somewhere along the way. So there is a, let's see. Here's add user. We send user in. So here, object ID. So object ID is a function from the Mongo driver, and on the way in, on the add user, I send this user in here, and I'm going to say user dot underscore ID's new object ID. Use it this way, and now we insert a user. Okay, so if I kind of rewind here, back to my users. No users currently. Let's post a user that is admin at Best Lawns. And now that looks better. And if I refresh here, I don't love that, but I'll have to figure that one out. I don't know why it's doing that, or if that's really a concern that I need to have. I might not need to worry about it. Let's do an update. So that's a login. So right now, so far, we can get users, post users, and log in. router dot patch slash users colon ID. Okay. So there's our patch. Let's see what this spits out. Read the user ID from the params, which is correct. Get the object that is the rec.body. Update's always the hardest one because you have to find a user by its ID and then $ set updated data. So you do a find operation first, look up the user, and then the second argument is what is changed about the user. And so if modified count is 1, updated user successfully, otherwise user not found. I'm going to debug users, update results. So this is a patch by ID. Now, of course, I need to run. Oh, I don't like this because this actually belongs in my. This belongs in my database module. So this, you guys see the auto-generated code took database logic and it put it inside of my user route, right? So I'm going to take that piece out and I'm going to hold off on that. So let's make a function we're going to take in the user ID and essentially you run that logic here and return the result. So again, you're putting the database logic in the database module, send the result back. So bring in the user ID, bring in the updated data object, and refactor that updated user, call that the updated user. The linter will tell you that this is a deprecated way of using object ID. Michael and I kind of did a little bit of digging on that. Not deprecated at all. Don't worry about it. It works just fine. Why do you have to do this? You have to do this. This is an important line because if you try and look up an ID by the string ID, a string ID is not an object ID, so it won't match. If you just try and look up a user by its string data type, the data type here in this case does matter. It has to be an object ID data type.
Why is the object ID crossed out?
That's that warning I was telling you about that it says it's deprecated, but you don't have to worry about that. It still works. It should still work. So now we got this update user. Let's export that function, update user. Therefore, we can import it up here, update user. And now we can refactor this here. Result, update user. We're debugging the results. There we go. So that kind of hides that a little bit. Now, save the file, save it, Control S. Now we're happy. Okay. So I only have one user right now. And this is his ID. If I go to get all users, notice how the ID is looking just like this here?
That's a string.
Well, it's an object ID in the database. In Postman, it looks like a string, but if you look here, ID is an object ID. So I think this just might be a formatting thing. Here, we're going to patch local, again, patch API users / user ID. So we're patching a user by its ID, body, and I'm going to say the business address is 31 Rankin Lane. This now needs to be JSON. I'm not going to change its email or its password or its role or any of that. I'm just going to change its profile business address to 31 Rankin Lane, which currently it's at 30 Rankin Lane. Let's see what breaks. It says user updated successfully. If I go back to get all users, okay, now you'll notice I did lose the other attributes there on profile. I overwrote the profile, but it did what it was supposed to do, and it did an update. If I were to include the old attributes here, business address, comma, rating of 5, you would just make sure that you don't lose the old data when you're doing an update. Like, what else did I have here? Business address, oh, business name. Best Lawns Inc. We're going to call this update user. So now if I run that, user updated successfully. We are performing updates. We're almost there. What I have left to do is a delete and a getting this live on cloud. I'm going to do the getting this live on cloud tomorrow because there's a few steps to that. Mainly around environment variables. Not too much, but a little bit. A little bit. Yeah, so all that's left is delete. What's that?
Will it permanently delete it, or will it be like?
Yeah, it takes it out of the database permanently until if you re-add it, of course you can. Delete user, user ID. Okay, so here's delete user, connect to the database, hit the user's collection, delete one by its ID. Again, it has to be the object ID. So you take the string and make sure it's an object ID. Return the result. Now it's interesting, again, back here, you're checking if the result's modified count, right? So you're looking at these properties, and if you want to understand the objects that are coming back, when it works, you get acknowledged of true, modified count of 1. You got this upserted ID, upserted count, matched count. So you get these different properties on the object. It's just checking the modified count of 1. So if the update worked, user updated 200, 404. Otherwise it says user not found. Wrapping this in try catches would be wise. But I'm just kind of flying through this right now. Call it V1. We've got version 1. Last but not least, router.delete. You're going to have an ID coming in via the params. Does it matter what?
What version there is, or
V1, I'm just, to answer your question, does it matter the versions? I mean, it just speaks to the fact that you're iterating over this and you're going to make it better with time. So let's get the user ID from rec.params. Again, the request object coming from the client request. Params variable. This is your params variable. Therefore, it has to be the ID. This and this have to match. Const result await delete user by ID. Of course, delete user has to be exported down here, which I didn't do. So delete user. Exported there, imported here. So that we can call it here. Here's an if else. If it deleted, we say user deleted. Otherwise, user not found. If I refresh my database, I've got one ID here. So get all users. So the last is DB. If I do slash, yeah, that's correct. So if I add a new request, say delete, /API users, paste that user ID. User deleted successfully. Go back to get all my users. They're gone. It worked. If I pass a user ID that doesn't exist, okay. This is the fact that your object IDs have to be exactly a certain number of characters. So what this is saying is that this is a server error. This is a 500 error. That I tried to convert a string into an object ID and the number of characters didn't match. So that's crashing. But if I add that character back in, I run this again, it just says user not found. So it's just a number of characters were off, which is why that crash happened. I'll show you how to fix that with data validation, just like I can show you how to do that with other fields. But if I give it the right number of characters, it just says user not found. If I give it a valid ID, it deletes the user. I can go back and add that user back in. I can only add that user once. Go back to get all users. We're looking good. So this is a good stopping point for this video because now we've got this refactored, these endpoints, all with CRUD operations on a Mongo database with users, and we've made some good progress. So the last thing to do is close everything down and push open in terminal. So git add everything. Git commit message added API endpoints for users. Git push. Okay. All right, added API endpoints for users. So now the repo's updated with all the code that I coded. If you did a code along, I hope you found that useful. Of course, you could pull all my changes down, should you wish. and made some good progress today. Of course, got a lot more to go.